이제 찾으셨어요.
This moment, it was never supposed to exist. Because 60 years ago, in the brutal winter of 1950, amid the snow-covered battlefield in Korea, a Turkish soldier came across a 5-year-old girl, crying until her voice gave out, curled up, shivering beside the bodies of her parents. He picked the child up and raised her as his own. He gave her a name, Ayla. But not long after, the soldier was ordered to return home, leaving the orphan girl behind. From that day on, he carried the memory of Ayla with him and never stopped hoping that one day he might find her again. After 60 years, a Korean War orphan reunites with the soldier who saved and raised her. In 1950, when the Korean War broke out, Turkey was one of the first countries to answer the United Nations call, sending troops to defend South Korea against the communist advance. Nearly 15,000 Turkish soldiers were deployed, the third largest contingent after the United States and the United Kingdom. The Korean battlefield was nothing short of hell for countless civilians. Villages were leveled, thousands of children lost their parents, and they were left wandering through the brutal winter cold with nowhere to turn. Among the soldiers was a 25-year-old young man named Suleyman Dilbirligi, an ordinary sergeant who had no idea this deployment would change his life forever. On November 26th, Suleyman's unit was suddenly ambushed as roughly 350,000 Chinese soldiers crossed the border in the Kanuri area. There, Suleyman's forces fought to hold the enemy back. Afterward, the United Nations forces had to retreat, and the Turkish troops followed during the withdrawal. According to Daily Sabah and The Telegraph, after the fighting intensity eased, the Turkish soldiers moved into the brush. Hearing movement, they thought the enemy was hiding there, and all the soldiers turned their weapons toward the bushes. But only Sergeant Suleyman had the courage to step forward and push through the thicket to investigate. There really was someone hiding, but it wasn't the enemy. It was a 5-year-old girl who had cried herself hoarse, huddled by the roadside. Her parents had died. The child had no shoes, no food, terrified and desperate in the bone-chilling cold. Suleyman couldn't hold back his heartache. He bent down, picked up the little girl, and comforted her. She had no identification, no home, and no surviving family. Unable to leave her behind, Suleyman took the girl with him back to the camp. He named her Ayla, meaning the halo of light around the moon, in Turkish, because her face seemed to glow like moonlight. From then on, Ayla lived with the unit, becoming a source of comfort for the entire group. She ate with the soldiers, slept in their tents, and they taught her Turkish. The troops called her Sergeant Suleyman's daughter, and it wasn't just Suleyman. All the other soldiers became family to Ayla.
Ayla.
For more than a year and a half, Ayla followed the unit across every front. In the midst of death and destruction, she became a rare light, giving the homesick soldiers a sense of family. A bright little girl, Ayla quickly learned Turkish and even began helping the soldiers as an interpreter. Over that year and a half, Ayla and Suleyman grew so close they were inseparable. They took many photos together, unaware that those quiet moments would later become symbols of war, printed on postage stamps and remembered around the world. But that brief happiness was not meant to last. The heartbreaking farewell. The real tragedy struck in 1951 when Suleyman's unit prepared to rotate out. He was utterly desperate to find a way to bring Ayla to Turkey and raise her as his own daughter, but taking children out of the war zone was illegal. According to multiple sources, He even considered smuggling Ayla out of Korea, hidden in a military duffel bag, but his superiors discovered the plan and forced him to stop. When the Turkish brigade withdrew, Suleyman placed Ayla in the Ankara school, an orphanage established by the Turkish military itself in Suwon in 1952. The Ankara school cared for and raised hundreds of war orphans. On the day of their goodbye, Suleyman left without daring to look back. He was afraid that if he saw Ayla crying, he wouldn't be able to walk away. From that moment on, for more than 60 years, even as Suleyman grew old, he carried Ayla's name in his heart. It became an obsession, a constant ache of longing. For decades, Suleyman never gave up hope. In 1999, when South Korea sent a rescue team to Turkey after the earthquake, he waited, hoping Ayla would appear. In 2002, when the World Cup was held in South Korea, he stared at the TV screens, scanning the crowds in the stands, hoping to catch a glimpse of Ayla somewhere, but he never did. In a 2018 interview with South Korea's MBC station, he shared that every day he prayed to Allah for one thing alone: the search for Ayla. At the age of 85, Sergeant Suleyman Dilbirligi attended a reception held to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Korean War. During the event, Suleyman shared his story with soldiers, Turkish and South Korean officials. After hearing his account, a South Korean journalist began investigating the case, thoroughly reviewing all available government archives. Unfortunately, the Ankara school's archives had been destroyed after the old building was demolished and a park was built on the site. A South Korean television station searched for orphans and former students of the Ankara school, but found no results. Just when all hope seemed lost, a former Ankara school student named Choi Dong-nam remembered Ayla. He recalled that she had been close to his older sister and remembered the name Kim Eun-ja. From there, the film crew tracked her down to Incheon, where Ayla was working at a child care center. When the door opened, Ayla, now a 65-year-old middle-aged woman, stood frozen when someone suddenly mentioned Sergeant Suleyman and showed her the old photos. She burst into tears and said that throughout her life, she had always prayed for this miracle to happen. Through her tears, Ayla said that Suleyman was her hero. Like Suleyman, she had never forgotten him, the second father who had saved her life. Ayla grew up at the Ankara school, then went to work, got married, and had children. She changed her name several times, eventually taking the name Kim Eun-ja. Ayla had once tried to find her adoptive father through television stations and government offices, but she had no leads. She had no photos of her biological parents, nor any picture of the Turkish father who had pulled her from the brink of death. Over time, she came to believe that those memories would remain buried in her heart until the day she died. The emotional reunion after 60 years. Once Ayla's identity was confirmed, the South Korean government invited Suleyman to come and meet her again. In 2010, the long-lost father and daughter arranged to reunite at the park, the very place where, nearly 60 years earlier, Suleyman had been forced to leave little Ayla behind. On the way there, both of them were incredibly nervous. When Suleyman saw Ayla approaching, he stood up suddenly and kept asking himself. He stared at the woman in front of him for a long time, as if trying to match her present features with the memory of the 5-year-old child that had been etched in his mind for more than 60 years. They threw their arms around each other. The old soldier broke down, crying like a child, gently stroking Ayla's hair over and over, while Ayla sobbed uncontrollably. Suleyman introduced his wife to Ayla. Ayla, in turn, introduced her own children to him. Unfortunately, Ayla's husband had already passed away. For Ayla, the father she once believed she would never see again was finally standing there, alive and real. She didn't blame him for leaving her behind. She understood that, back then, the war and the rules had left him no other choice. On the day of farewell, Suleyman turned his face away. He couldn't bear to see Ayla crying. Ayla stood quietly for a long time, watching her father go. In the years that followed, they wrote letters to each other regularly. In every letter, Ayla called Suleyman father and his wife mother. In 2017, the story of Ayla and Suleyman inspired filmmakers to create the movie Ayla, the Daughter of War. The film was selected as Turkey's official entry for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. Although the movie didn't win the award, the story of a Korean girl and a Turkish soldier touched the hearts of millions of people around the world. During the film's promotion, the real-life Ayla and Suleyman had the chance to meet again several more times. Their final reunion, however, took place in a hospital in Istanbul, where Suleyman was being treated for respiratory problems. Age and illness quickly wore down Suleyman's health. By then, he could only communicate with hand gestures. When Ayla saw the man she had always called father lying in the hospital bed, she cried heartbrokenly. And so, at 91 years old, Suleyman and 71-year-old Ayla said their final goodbye. Suleyman Dilbirligi passed away on December 7th, 2017. Even though she lost the father she had known, Ayla never cut ties with Turkey. She still takes out her Turkish bowls from time to time, wiping them clean as a way to remember the father who saved her from the war. And for Suleyman, before his life came to an end, perhaps that was more than enough.